I'm Tim Kirkner, here on behalf of the Advising Steering Group and the Academic Department Advising Committee, and I first off want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation to find out about the work of our groups and the role that you will play in these efforts. A brief step back in time will help bring some context to what you will hear later. I will start by saying that advising and an advising group of some kind have been part of the fabric at Montgomery College for almost as long as we've been in existence. Conversations about how to shape advising have been long-standing. As the national and state agendas regarding higher education shift the college's priorities around advising, they take shape accordingly. In the years past, the focus has been on recruitment and enrollment, which blurred the lines between advising and registration. Around 2010, the conversation shifted towards keeping the students we already had, and that is where the story begins. Statements such as the one here became the focal point of conversations among leaders in higher education. As these leaders turned to those knowledgeable in the student development area, the vocabulary began to change, with words thrown out like persistence, retention, affordability, transferability, intrusive, and proactive, all having an emphasis on keeping a closer watch on progress and encouraging students to stick around to meet their goals. Wanting to follow the national conversation, our president signed on with a commitment to increase our completion rates and, more importantly, student success. Here you'll see her statement from 2010, seeking out brilliant intellectuals from our college community to define what shape this took here. Counseling heard this call and offered a model that reflected the standards of advising set forth by the National Academic Advising Association, as well as the Council for the Advancement of Standards, or CAS, for their academic advising programs. We knew that students didn't follow a straight line from entry to completion. Besides the information laid out in the catalog, no GPS exists for community college students that ensures that they make it seamlessly from point to point. In fact, some of the wondering represented by the squiggly lines here that some may believe is problematic can actually be productive. That line is our typical community college student and provides a visual representation of developmental advising. With that, we head into 2011. Upon receiving a recommendation from the Advising Steering Group, the President charges the group with coming up with a definition of developmental advising for Montgomery College. Since there are many perspectives out there on the best way to advise our students, it was critical for the college community to have a common understanding of how advising would unfold at our institution. Some would see advising as prescriptive, advising as bookkeeping, so to speak. Others see it more as developmental, taking into account the entire student's world or experience, and others see advising as teaching. Most places utilize all three, but the standard for advising programs is a heavy concentration on developmental. Most central to this definition is that completion is tied to the student's goal, and advising is seen as a collaborative process that takes place over time and on many levels. It includes the flexibility to alter goals in response to the knowledge they gain once they begin their academic career. With the definition in hand, 2012 brought about a charge from the SVPSS. The plan envisioned that some prescriptive advising would still take place when appropriate to the student's goal. However, developmental advising would be the overriding paradigm by which we would conceptualize our advising programs, policies, and procedures. At the heart of the advising program is the Student Success Network. More to come on this later in the presentation. Due to the academic reorganization, the Advising Steering Group was told to focus only on advising tied to counseling faculty and faculty involved in cadre advising. It should be noted here that the ASG made a concerted effort to design the framework to allow for flexibility to later include other parts of the college. Along with the significant changes underway at the college, our state legislature had some ideas of their own about how to get students to graduate. You may have heard of the College and Career Readiness and College Completion Act of 2013, CCR-CCA. I'll come back to this later in the presentation. In the end, the ASG produced a comprehensive plan for developmental advising at Montgomery College. I want to emphasize the use of the word plan and not program. The plan was intentionally designed to be broader than a program and serve our entire student population. The plan describes a methodology for advising, a set of learning outcomes and components which may take the form of a program. Our goal was to put in place a scalable solution that made sense for all of our students. Earlier I mentioned the Success Network, a term we hope students come to recognize once our advising framework is more firmly in place. As conceptualized, all MC employees play a role in the advising process. It will truly take the efforts of the entire college to help students reach their goals. As envisioned here, everyone will be trained to provide some basic guidance to move students along in the advising process. Here is a quick view of the 6 levels that will be developed as the plan is further implemented. Today, the focus will be on levels 3 and 4. This is where faculty fit into the advising puzzle and where our implementation efforts will be focused over the next few months. I want to make it clear that students may access advising in both a parallel and sequential manner. In other words, students will be encouraged to seek out guidance from all levels, but will learn over time that different people in their success level have varying sets of knowledge and expertise and will come to expect referrals to the most appropriate person for their presenting concerns. A sequential structure will also be put in place for the purpose of CCR-CCA compliance. Due to the requirements of the law, the college has committed to document, track, and monitor academic plans for all degree-seeking students. The initial plan is created in consultation with the counselor or faculty cadre member. Later, at a designated point in time, or course benchmark, for example ENES 100 for engineering, students will work with a faculty advisor, level 4 in the new structure, in their discipline to update their plan. As we continue our walk through recent history, you'll note the appearance of Starfish Retention Solutions. While a small point on the timeline, we know Starfish has received a great deal of attention. Starfish, like Banner and other technological tools, supports our efforts in advising, but Starfish does not equal advising. That being said, Starfish arrived at a critical moment for the counseling departments. While the college was still working out the details of the academic restructuring in the fall of 2013, the counseling faculty and faculty cadre working with us, levels 5 and 6, began Phase 1 implementation of the Developmental Advising Plan, which also coincided with the launch of Starfish and the mandate to comply with CCR-CCA. For counseling, this was not so much a shift in philosophy, since developmental advising is the prevailing mode by which we operate. Rather, it was a shift in processes and procedures. By spring 2014, we switched from a walk-in service model to primarily seeing students by appointment. Documentation became key. Using Starfish, we are now documenting our meetings with students, as well as their academic plans. We are also collecting data for purposes of CCR-CCA, but also to help us design effective interventions to help keep students on track to meet their goals. For instance, all students are required to complete an advising questionnaire at entry to the college. The information collected from the questionnaire is then used to identify students' needs early on with the goal of intervening in a timely manner. Finally, with things taking shape with the academic reorganization, a charge came forth to begin looking at how the developmental advising plan could extend outside of counseling and into the academic departments. Led by Brad Stewart and Monica Brown, a committee was formed to compile recommendations for a more unified, centralized, and better coordinated approach to advising at Montgomery College, an organizational structure by which advising roles and responsibilities and relationships between instructional faculty and counseling faculty are defined in order to encourage two-way referral and information sharing, and strategies for implementation for those involved in direct delivery of major field student advising and responsibility for compliance. The committee was named the Major Field Advising Committee, or MFAC, and comprised of faculty representing disciplines with identifiable advising structures already in place. By the conclusion of the spring 2014 semester, a set of recommendations and proposed implementation plan was submitted to the SVPAA. Everything put forward was predicated on the notion that adequate resources would be allocated to support advising in the disciplines. Ultimately, the MFAC report highlighted 5 major recommendations, boiled down in the most simplistic terms. 1. Disciplines will develop an advising plan unique to the needs and resources within their area. 2. Disciplines will identify faculty to carry out Level 4 responsibilities. 3. Advising will be coordinated through the Advising Steering Group. 4. A standardized web page will be established for each discipline. 5. A more formal liaison relationship will be established between counseling and the disciplines. Pressure was on when the MFAC reconvened this fall. The first order of business was a new name for the committee to more accurately represent the broader focus on the work. With that, MFAC became the ADAC, Academic Department Advising Committee. The ADAC joined forces with the Advising Steering Group mid-semester. And a variety of subgroups were formed to tackle the major tasks, such as creating a centralized advising portal, Level 4 training, and planning for how to share this out to you. Which brings us to present day and the year 2015. When Phase 2 implementation of the Developmental Advising Plan, and specifically Academic Department Advising, begins in earnest. And we have a hunch you may have some questions about the who, what, where, why, when, and how. So who? All instructional faculty and their chairs. The what? Well, that the rollout to academic departments, and specifically to Level 3, with an emphasis on Level 4. The where? That will be the advising work that takes place in your discipline and in your offices, with support from ADAC, ASG, and the counseling faculty. Why? Do we even have to say? Because our students need you. And if you need more convincing, watch this short video.
When I talk to other faculty about advising, I guess I talk about trying to orient students to the college so they kind of get the big picture. Faculty have a very limited view of what they do, and advising is very broad. So it's interesting to kind of see the whole picture. I was really surprised to learn some of the reasons students choose Montgomery College, the lack of knowledge they have about college. So it felt like it would make me a better professor.
How I would define advising to other faculty is that it makes you a more powerful professor. We're in the classroom because we want to influence young people or students of any age, and knowing the path that they are on allows you to be much more powerful influencer for the good in those students' lives. And you can make the time with the students is much more impactful when you know how to help them reach their goals. And so it has made a big difference in how I interact with my own students in my classroom, because I'm just a better resource for them, and I am more able to help them reach their goals, which is why I'm there in the first place. It's so easy during the semester to get completely the blinders on, you're focused on your class, your students, what you need to do that day. It's hard, it's easy to lose focus of the entire institution and the population as a whole. And so by being involved with advising and with the cadre, I'm much more aware of this entire institution and the individuals involved in it. And to me, that enriches my job, because it's not just about what goes on from 8 to 9:15 on Mondays and Wednesdays in the morning. It becomes a much richer experience.
Advising really isn't something static. You don't make a plan on day one in your orientation as a freshman and stick with it. Some students do, but that's pretty rare. So one of the things that's interesting about advising at Montgomery College is it's not mandatory. Students pretty much all come in for advising when they first arrive. After that, they need to seek out the tools and advice and the help along the way. One of the things that the advising model that's being developed includes is some way for counselors to reach out and say, hey, you look like you're off track a little bit, why don't you come on in? Or you have this benchmark and you haven't met it, let's talk. Or you met the benchmark, what's next? Have you started looking at your schools? All that kind of thing.
So I signed up knowing nothing, but that was the whole point, because I realized that I was missing a huge piece of the puzzle. And to be more effective professor for just my students, I knew that piece had to be filled in. And that's why I signed up, and I have had a wonderful time. Now I have not just the classroom relationship, but also that advising relationship. And then I do get students coming back and saying, okay, I've done this, or I need help with this, or what should I do now? And so I'm able to expand my conversation with my own students, and they know I'm someone they can come to get help from, and so then you are building that relationship beyond just the classroom content. And that's been very enriching for me as well, because I've been able to see these students progress, transfer, and that feels awesome.
My understanding of advising changed in the way that when I started, I had this idea that advisors would only be those people, like boring people who would tell me which classes to take and would not really understand what I want. But since I started talking with my advisor, I actually got into a relationship, and it was really helpful. She's into my whole process of learning, not only just the classes I will take, but my ultimate goal, which is to graduate, and she will help me throughout the process. We need people who will understand that a freshman doesn't really know for sure what they want to do, or someone in their second year might have a change of heart, might take a class and learn something new and just suddenly change their whole major. So we need people who, first of all, they know how to deal with people, and then they know the system very well so that they can help you ease your change.
When I first started, I thought it was a one-time thing. I just needed to get my foot in the door and have them help me with the first few classes, and I would be able to advise myself throughout the rest of my college career. But I learned just this last year that you actually need to see a counselor every semester if possible, but definitely work with them throughout your college career so they can help you.
I'm in an academic area that already takes advising very seriously. We have open advising sessions where students can drop in and talk to people in the department. We have some designated information centers, so there's always sort of that ongoing, here's what's new, here's to talk to. And I don't see every department doing that, so I think those kinds of things are helpful. I think where they have landed is that faculty are already doing a lot of advising. They recognize that, and they want the communication to be stronger. They're looking at ways to liaison with the faculty so that there's good communication both ways. And they're looking to educate faculty about the tools that are available to them so that they can be better advisors.
There are faculty who are passionate about this, who see the value in it and want to be involved. The biggest barrier in their way is time. It's time. And the problem is the people who are most interested in helping the students are also the one most dedicated to offering an awesome lecture every Monday, every Wednesday, who are also passionate about providing the best educational experience. So you put the teaching load with all that effort for making that experience as good as they can for their students. There's not much left for being involved in and pursuing that advising part of it. So the best way to support those people who care deeply is to give them the time in their day to be able to do that. If every faculty member is trained and understands this piece of that puzzle in the student's life, then absolutely I see a widespread advantage to our students. Every student in the classroom is going to have an easier time reaching the goals that they're here to reach.
If the professors would somehow have to learn the the system and learn all the major process, and that would be beneficial for students because we would choose more people that can help them.
And when? Now? How? It will take some creativity on your part, but this will come from the discussions you will have within your disciplines and the guidance provided by the ADAC, ASG, and the counseling faculty. Which brings us to what's next. At the end of this presentation, you will have an opportunity to discuss how academic department advising may take shape within your discipline and across the college. Understanding that the heat is on with an implementation deadline of summer-fall 2015 registration pressing down on all of us. While some aspects may not be fully in place by March, the college must come into compliance with CCR-CCA by this time, which means we will have to prioritize the tasks ahead of us with this in mind. So we need your feedback. Today and moving forward, feel free to send it to asg@montgomerycollege.edu. Once the semester gets underway, you'll have an opportunity to craft a detailed advising plan for your discipline with guidance from the counseling faculty, the ASG, and ADAC. Meanwhile, the ASG is hard at work developing an advising portal for all things advising. This will be the go-to location for advising information, tools, training, professional development, etc. During the months between now and that implementation deadline, Level 4 training will be delivered to those in need. And discipline advising pages loaded and launched. Much work will continue to be done following the target date, but if we all come together, much can be accomplished. Beyond this, there are plans to roll out the remaining levels and continue to build out the developmental advising plan. Now that you have some idea of how we got here and where we're going, the ASG and ADAC are eager to know, what role will you play?